May 1945. Berlin is already in ruins and the war is entering its final hours. In the early hours of the 1st, under a white flag, General Hans Krebs crosses the Soviet lines to deliver news that changes the course of history. Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun have died in the Chancellery bunker. No negotiation is possible. The Soviet order is clear: total surrender. The next day, Berlin capitulates. In less than 3 weeks, the battle leaves more than 360,000 Soviet casualties and nearly 500,000 Germans among the dead, wounded, and prisoners, in addition to tens of thousands of civilians. After the fall, the Third Reich collapses from within. Across Germany, more than 100,000 people died under extreme circumstances in just a few days. Among them were generals, ministers, regional party leaders, and high-ranking SS officers. With Berlin reduced to rubble and central power gone, the men who surrounded Hitler were exposed to the final consequences of the regime they had helped sustain. What happened to them when it was all over? Martin Bormann, the bureaucracy that ruled Berlin. Martin Bormann was born on June 17, 1900 in Wegeleben, within the German Empire. He grew up in a rural Lutheran environment. His father died when he was a child, and his mother remarried shortly afterward. He studied agricultural commerce but interrupted his education in 1918 to join as a gunner in the 55th Field Artillery Regiment. He never saw combat and was demobilized in February 1919. After returning to civilian life, he worked in agricultural activities and ended up as the manager of a large estate in Mecklenburg. In that environment, he became involved with anti-Semitic landowner associations and paramilitary groups. In 1922, he joined a Freikorps led by Gerhard Rossbach, where he took on administrative and treasury duties. 2 years later, he was sentenced to prison for his participation as an accomplice in the murder of teacher Walter Kadow, whom he and other militants beat and slashed after accusing him of collaborating with French authorities in the Ruhr. He was released in 1925. In 1927, he joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party. His profile was not that of an agitator or orator, but of an organizer. He worked in the party's regional press and later moved into administrative roles. In Munich, he joined the SA insurance system and created the Hilfskasse der NSDAP, an internal fund that managed financial compensation for party members. Control of this fund gave him direct influence over thousands of party members and became a key source of funding. By 1932, the fund was collecting millions of marks annually. After the Nazis came to power in 1933, he was assigned as chief of staff in Rudolf Hess's office, Hitler's deputy. From this position, he built an extensive bureaucracy and began intervening in internal party and state decisions. That same year, he was appointed Reichsleiter and deputy of the Reichstag. From 1934 onward, he became part of Hitler's inner circle and began accompanying him constantly, preparing reports, summaries, and filtering requests. In 1935, he assumed total supervision of Hitler's private residence in Obersalzberg. He directed renovations, expansions, roads, accommodations, security facilities, and acquired land, turning the area into a closed complex. He also organized the construction of the Kehlstein House. During this period, he took control of Hitler's personal finances and managed the economic fund supported by contributions from German businessmen. On May 10, 1941, Rudolf Hess flew alone to the United Kingdom. 2 days later, Hitler abolished the deputy Führer position and transferred all its functions to Bormann, who took over the party chancellery. From that moment, he controlled appointments, internal party legislation, and direct access to Hitler. By 1943, he exercised effective control over the regime's domestic affairs. During the war, he signed key decrees. He extended racial laws to eastern territories, established permanent policies for the physical elimination of the Jewish population, and granted Adolf Eichmann absolute authority over Jews under Gestapo jurisdiction. He promoted special penal codes for Jews and Poles in occupied areas, authorizing extreme punishments. He was one of the main figures in the campaign against Christian churches, expelled clergy from the party, and promoted systematic restrictions on religious education. In 1944, he participated alongside Heinrich Himmler in organizing the Volkssturm, a militia created by forced recruitment as a last resort. Poorly equipped and minimally trained, it was sent to the Eastern Front with enormous human losses. On January 16, 1945, he returned with Hitler to the bunker under the Reich Chancellery in Berlin. He remained there until the end. On April 29th, he witnessed and signed Hitler's political and personal testament, which named him executor and party minister. The next day, he was present during Hitler's final hours in the bunker and participated in subsequent arrangements. For several hours, he delayed the official communication of Hitler's death to the new head of state, Karl Dönitz. On the night of May 1st, he left the bunker with SS Dr. Ludwig Stumpfegger, Artur Axmann, and pilot Hans Baur. He carried a copy of the testament. The group attempted to break through the Soviet encirclement via railway tunnels and exit through the Lehrte station area. Along the way, artillery explosions scattered the fugitives, after which all immediate trace of their whereabouts was lost. For years, his location was uncertain. He was tried in absentia at Nuremberg and sentenced to death. In 1972, human remains were found near Lehrte station. Forensic and dental analyses later confirmed his identity, establishing that his path ended there in the final hours of the regime's collapse. Joachim von Ribbentrop. Treaties signed before Poland. Joachim von Ribbentrop was born into a German middle-class family and spent part of his youth studying in various European countries. Before getting involved in politics, he worked outside Germany, lived in Canada and the United States, and engaged in business activities linked to the international wine trade. During World War I, he returned to Germany, joined the army, served on the Eastern Front, and was later assigned to military duties in Istanbul. He rose to the rank of lieutenant and received the Iron Cross. After the conflict, he returned to civilian life and resumed his business activities, staying away from politics during the Weimar Republic years. In 1932, he came into direct contact with Adolf Hitler. Ribbentrop presented himself as a man with international experience and foreign connections, a rarity within the Nazi environment. That same year, he joined the National Socialist German Workers' Party and fully embraced its ideology. He lacked political experience, but found in proximity to Hitler a fast track to power. To consolidate his position, he adopted absolute loyalty and full adherence to the Führer's decisions. Within the party, he was viewed with suspicion by figures like Joseph Goebbels, who considered him an intruder without real diplomatic training. In 1933, he undertook his first significant mission as Hitler's personal envoy to the United Kingdom, where he met with Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald. The following year, he created his own diplomatic office, the Dienststelle Ribbentrop, which operated parallel to the official foreign ministry. From there, he began intervening in international negotiations as the regime advanced its rearmament. Ribbentrop used disarmament talks to buy time, presenting Germany as a power willing to review the international order while secretly expanding its military. In 1935, he was key in signing the Anglo-German Naval Agreement, which allowed Germany to expand its fleet. In 1936, he participated in negotiating the Anti-Comintern Pact with Japan and was appointed ambassador to Britain that same year. His mission was to secure a direct alliance with London. He failed. British leadership considered him clumsy and unreliable, and his conduct, marked by prolonged absences and an arrogant attitude, eventually isolated him. He remained in London until 1938 without concrete results. On February 4, 1938, Hitler appointed him Reich Minister of Foreign Affairs. From that position, he replaced much of the professional diplomatic corps with loyal Nazi militants. He adopted an aggressive tone in foreign policy and became a direct executor of the regime's expansionist plans. He actively participated in the Sudeten crisis, pressuring the British and French to accept the disintegration of Czechoslovakia. In September 1938, he was involved in the Munich agreements and shortly after in the First Vienna Award, which redistributed territories in Central Europe under German pressure. On August 23, 1939, he signed the Non-Aggression Pact with the Soviet Union in Moscow alongside Vyacheslav Molotov. The agreement included secret clauses for the division of Poland and guaranteed Soviet neutrality in a war in Western Europe. Days later, Germany invaded Poland. Ribbentrop considered this pact his greatest diplomatic achievement. His position was affected when Italy initially declared neutrality, which he attributed to Italian Minister Galeazzo Ciano. In 1940, he again intervened in the Second Vienna Award, forcing Romania to cede territories. That same year, he was one of the signatories of the Tripartite Pact between Germany, Italy, and Japan, formalizing the Axis. During meetings with Soviet diplomats, he maintained that the pact did not imply a war against the USSR, even though military preparations were already underway. Although he expressed internal reservations about attacking the Soviet Union without first defeating Britain, he obeyed Hitler's final decision. The invasion of the USSR in June 1941 marked his last major diplomatic act. After the United States entered the war, Germany's international isolation deepened and the foreign ministry lost real influence. From 1942 onward, Ribbentrop was increasingly relegated to bureaucratic functions, with progressively limited access to Hitler. In 1944, his position weakened further when diplomats' involvement in the assassination attempt on Hitler was discovered. Martin Bormann blamed him for failing to purge the ministry, which allowed the SS to intervene directly in the diplomatic structure. From that moment, Ribbentrop was excluded from any significant negotiation attempts. Even when Heinrich Himmler initiated secret contacts for a separate peace, Ribbentrop was not informed. On April 20, 1945, he attended Hitler's last birthday in Berlin. He was not granted an audience. Shortly afterward, he left the capital and headed to Hamburg. On June 14, 1945, he was arrested by British agents while hiding in a guest house. He was transferred to Nuremberg and charged with crimes against peace, war crimes, and direct responsibility in the deportation of Jews from Reich-allied countries. During the trial, he claimed ignorance and shifted responsibility to Hitler. Documents presented demonstrated his conscious involvement in treaty manipulation, pre-war diplomatic pressure, and coordination with satellite governments for deportations. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. In the early hours of October 16, 1946, he was the first of the condemned to be executed. Karl Dönitz, from Naval Command to prison. Karl Dönitz was born on September 16, 1891, in Grünau, near Berlin. In 1910, he joined the Imperial German Navy as a cadet and, a few years later, was already in active service during World War I. He first served on the cruiser Breslau, operating in the Mediterranean, and later in the Black Sea when the ship came under the control of the Ottoman Empire. In 1916, he was transferred to the submarine force, a destiny that would shape his entire career. He sailed in several units until October 1918, when his submarine suffered a serious malfunction, sank, and Dönitz was captured by British forces. He spent the end of the war as a prisoner and returned to Germany in 1919. After the conflict, he remained in the armed forces, joining the Reichswehr. He steadily rose through the ranks during the 1920s and early 1930s, holding various naval commands. In 1934, he received command of the cruiser Emden, with which he conducted a long training voyage to train new officers. In 1935, he was promoted to captain in the new Kriegsmarine of the National Socialist regime. That same year, he took command of the first submarine flotilla, which at that time had only 3 operational units. From then on, Karl Dönitz focused all his efforts on a very specific idea: not to defeat Great Britain in large naval battles, but to strangle it by cutting its supplies. Dönitz believed that battleships were slow, expensive, and vulnerable, and that Britain's true weakness was at sea, its total dependence on merchant ships for food, fuel, and armaments. If those convoys disappeared, Britain could not continue fighting. By the late 1930s, he was in command of all German submarine forces, first as operations chief and later as commander with total control over strategy. Shortly before the war, he was promoted to Commodore and, once hostilities began, to Rear Admiral. When World War II started, the German submarine fleet was far from what Dönitz had envisioned. He had only about 50 submarines, many of them small and short-range. Nevertheless, he took charge of the naval campaign in the Atlantic. After the first operations and the loss of the battleship Bismarck, Germany largely abandoned the use of large ships and concentrated its attacks almost exclusively on Allied merchant vessels. In 1941, Dönitz introduced a new form of attack, several submarines coordinating to strike the same convoy simultaneously. This tactic, known as wolf packs, was particularly effective in the early months and put Allied supply routes in jeopardy. The attacks intensified after the United States entered the war. In 1942, the German submarine forces sank hundreds of Allied ships during what the crews themselves called the Happy Time. However, this success began to reverse as the Allies improved anti-submarine tactics, introduced long-range airborne radar, and managed to decrypt the German Navy's encrypted messages. By 1943, submarine losses had become unsustainable, and Dönitz ordered a reduction of offensive operations. On January 30th, 1943, he was promoted to Gross Admiral and appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Kriegsmarine, replacing Erich Raeder. From that moment, he began meeting regularly with Adolf Hitler and gained his trust. Despite holding the highest naval position, he continued to directly oversee submarine warfare. In the final years of the conflict, advanced German submarine models, such as the Type 21 and 23, were captured intact by the Allies and used as a basis for further developments. In April 1945, with Berlin encircled and the regime collapsing, Dönitz was far from the capital. In that context, he received an urgent telegram placing him at the head of the Reich, although neither Martin Bormann nor the original Testament document reached him. Nevertheless, he assumed the position on April 30th, 1945, without adopting the title of Führer. From that moment, he led a state that no longer had real military capacity. His priority was to organize a surrender that would allow as many German troops as possible to surrender to the Western Allies. On May 7th, he authorized General Alfred Jodl to sign the surrender in Reims, which came into effect on May 8th. The next day, he ordered the surrender of all German forces. He then established his provisional government in Flensburg-Mürwik, where he continued meeting with his ministers and maintained military discipline, including the death penalty for deserters. On May 22nd, he was summoned by the Allied Control Commission. The following day, accompanied by Jodl and Hans-Georg von Friedeburg, he presented himself aboard the ship Patria. There he was informed that he was under arrest by order of Eisenhower, along with the high command of the Wehrmacht. He was considered a prisoner of war without honors or additional formalities. He was transferred to Nuremberg, where he faced charges of crimes against peace and war crimes. He was not charged with crimes against humanity. The main charge was based on an order issued in 1942 after the sinking of the transatlantic ship Laconia, which prohibited rescuing survivors from sunken vessels. During the trial, a statement from U.S. Admiral Chester Nimitz was presented, acknowledging that similar tactics had been used by the Allies in the Pacific. Nevertheless, Dönitz was found guilty of 2 charges and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He served his sentence at Spandau Prison. During that period, he remained intellectually active and continued defending his actions as strictly military. He was released on October 1st, 1956. He retired to Aumühle near Hamburg, where he wrote 2 books about his experiences, 10 Years and 20 Days and My Fortunate Life. He died on December 24, 1980, at the age of 89, having spent more than a decade as the last head of state of the Third Reich and one of the main architects of German naval warfare. Hans Frank, Wawel Castle and Deportations. Hans Michael Frank was born on May 23, 1900, in Karlsruhe, in the German Empire. After completing his schooling and obtaining the Abitur, he volunteered for the Bavarian Army in 1918, although he did not see combat before the end of World War I. In the years immediately following, he joined various paramilitary formations, participating in the Freikorps between 1919 and 1920, in a context marked by political violence and the collapse of the German imperial order. In 1919, he began studying law and economics in Munich, Vienna, and Kiel. At the same time, he became involved with nationalist and anti-Semitic organizations, including the German Workers' Party, which later became the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Although his formal party membership was intermittent in the early years, from the early 1920s he acted as a legal advisor to the movement. In 1923, he participated in the attempted coup led by Adolf Hitler in Munich. After the failed uprising, he fled to Austria and returned to Germany in 1924, where he completed his law doctorate and passed the state examination in 1926. From 1927, he opened his own law firm and became one of the most active lawyers serving the NSDAP. Over the following years, he represented the party in more than 2,400 legal cases and personally defended Hitler in around 150 trials. That same year, he definitively joined the NSDAP and began a rapid political career. He founded the Association of National Socialist German Lawyers, aimed at providing legal cover for party members and developing a legal framework in line with National Socialist ideology. In 1930, he was elected to the Reichstag, a position he held until the end of the regime. After Hitler came to power in 1933, Frank was appointed Minister of Justice of Bavaria and assumed key responsibilities in coordinating and standardizing the German judicial system. From these positions, he endorsed extrajudicial executions, supported political repression, and justified the subordination of law to party ideology. In 1934, he became a minister without portfolio and presided over the German Law Academy, from which he promoted a complete transformation of the legal order based on racial and political criteria. In public speeches and writings, he defended the total exclusion of Jews from the German legal system and the elimination of any opposition to the regime. After the German invasion of Poland in September 1939 and the division of the country previously agreed with the Soviet Union, Frank was appointed head of the civil administration in the occupied territories. On October 12, 1939, he was named Governor-General of the so-called General Government, initially based in Łódź and shortly thereafter in Krakow. From Wawel Castle, he acted as the highest civil authority in a region that was not annexed to the Reich, but subjected to a colonial administration aimed at the total exploitation of the population and resources. Under his rule, Poland ceased to exist as a political entity. The German administration dissolved Polish state structures, closed educational institutions, and legally degraded the population. Frank concentrated all civil powers in himself and coordinated the economic exploitation of the territory for the benefit of the German war economy. He ordered mass deportations of Polish workers to Germany, where they were used as forced labor in factories and industrial operations. Between 1939 and 1945, at least 1.5 million Poles were deported, many of whom died from exhaustion, disease, mistreatment, or bombings. At the same time, the general government became one of the main stages of Jewish extermination. The Jewish population was confined to ghettos, subjected to planned starvation, and later deported to extermination centers. Frank repeatedly expressed to his cabinet the need to eliminate Jews from the territory under his control and fully supported the extermination policies promoted from Berlin. Although direct operations were carried out by the SS under Heinrich Himmler's authority, Frank's civil administration facilitated the logistics, segregation, and deportation of millions of people. During his tenure, systematic repression campaigns known as pacification actions were carried out against the Polish intelligentsia, clergy, liberal professionals, and any sector considered capable of sustaining a Polish national identity. Thousands of teachers, priests, doctors, artists, and officials were executed or sent to concentration camps. Entire villages were destroyed in retaliation for resistance activities, and public executions became routine. From 1942, Frank lost influence within the party after conflicts with the SS and criticism from Hitler of some of his speeches, although he retained his position as Governor-General. That same year, he survived an assassination attempt when the train he was traveling in derailed following an explosion near Krakow. In 1944, with the advance of the Red Army and the outbreak of the Warsaw Uprising, the German military situation in Poland collapsed. In January 1945, facing the Soviet Vistula-Oder offensive, Frank abandoned Krakow and fled south to Germany. On May 3, 1945, he was captured by US troops in Bavaria. After his arrest, he went through a severe personal crisis that caused significant injuries. He was transferred to Nuremberg and placed at the disposal of the International Military Tribunal. In the months before the trial, he voluntarily handed over dozens of volumes of his personal diaries, which documented in detail the administration of the general government and were used as key evidence against him. During the trial, he was charged with conspiracy, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. He admitted collective responsibility for crimes committed under his authority, though he denied direct responsibility for some of them. The tribunal acquitted him of the conspiracy charge, but found him guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. On October 1, 1946, he received the final sentence, which was carried out days later in Nuremberg. Ernst Kaltenbrunner, successor of Heydrich. Ernst Kaltenbrunner was born on October 4, 1903, in Ried im Innkreis, in northern Austria, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was the son of a lawyer and grew up in a nationalist, anti-clerical family environment supportive of Austria's union with Germany. To attend secondary school, he lived in a boarding house, and during his time at the gymnasium, he met Adolf Eichmann, with whom he would maintain contact in the following years. In 1921, he began studying chemical engineering, but in 1923 he abandoned that course and enrolled in law, taking advantage of a vacancy at his father's law office. He earned his doctorate in 1926, and during his university years stood out as a spokesperson for nationalist student organizations. He actively participated in anti-clerical and anti-Marxist demonstrations and belonged to an ultranationalist Burschenschaft. After graduating, he completed his legal internship between 1926 and 1928 in Linz and Salzburg. In 1929, he opened his own law office. From the late 1920s, he became increasingly involved with far-right organizations. In 1929, he joined the Heimwehr, and on October 18, 1930, he became a member of the National Socialist Party in Austria. In 1931, he joined the Austrian SS. From 1932, he worked in his father's law office, defending NSDAP members in court for free. After the Nazi Party was banned in Austria in 1933, he continued his political activity clandestinely. In January 1934, he was arrested for conspiracy against the Austrian government. During his imprisonment, he organized a hunger strike that resulted in the release of hundreds of Nazi prisoners. That same month, he married Elisabeth Eder, also a National Socialist activist. In July 1934, after the failed Nazi coup in Austria, he was again detained. Although no conclusive charges could be proven against him, he spent several months in prison and temporarily lost his law license. He was released in 1935. From the mid-1930s, Ernst Kaltenbrunner became a central figure of the SS in Austria. He was appointed head of the organization in that country and dedicated nearly all his activity to building and coordinating the Nazi apparatus in secret. In 1937, he began working closely with Arthur Seyss-Inquart to prepare for the annexation of Austria into the German Reich. After the March 1938 Anschluss, Kaltenbrunner was appointed Minister of State Security and actively participated in reorganizing the Gestapo in Austria, in the systematic persecution of the Jewish population, and in the creation of the Mauthausen concentration camp. Between 1938 and 1939, he was directly involved in the construction and operation of Mauthausen and the implementation of the regime's repressive policies. Alongside Adolf Eichmann, he organized the Central Office for Jewish Emigration in Vienna, which forced the expulsion or flight of tens of thousands of Austrian Jews. By 1939, about 150,000 people had left Austria as a direct result of these measures. After the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich in 1942, Ernst Kaltenbrunner was chosen by Heinrich Himmler as his successor. On January 30, 1943, he assumed leadership of the Reich Main Security Office, RSHA, the body that encompassed the Gestapo, the criminal police, and the SS security service. With this appointment, he became one of the most powerful men in the Nazi repressive apparatus and a direct collaborator of Himmler. From this position, he oversaw concentration camps, mass deportations, Einsatzgruppen operations, and the systematic persecution of Jews, Romani people, political opponents, and members of churches. Under his direction, mass killings intensified, civilians in occupied territories were deported for forced labor, and prisoners of war were executed. He also assumed the presidency of Interpol and consolidated his control over the Reich's intelligence and security services. Although compared to Heydrich, Kaltenbrunner was less notable for strategic ability than for his ruthlessness, tenacity, and willingness to carry out extreme orders without hesitation. After the failed assassination attempt against Hitler on July 20, 1944, Kaltenbrunner accumulated even more power. He personally directed investigations, interrogations, and arrests of those involved in the conspiracy. He was directly responsible for the executions of key figures of the German resistance, including Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Hans von Dohnanyi, Rüdiger Schleicher, and Admiral Wilhelm Canaris. These actions earned him Hitler's personal recognition, and in December 1944, the Knight's Cross of the War Merit with Swords. In April 1945, facing the Reich's military collapse, Himmler appointed him Commander-in-Chief of the remaining German forces in southern Europe. Kaltenbrunner attempted to reorganize intelligence services as a clandestine network meant to operate after Germany's defeat. Simultaneously, realizing the war was lost, he tried to secure amnesty by negotiating with the Allies without success. He fled to Tyrol with 2 collaborators and tried to conceal his identity. On May 15, 1945, he was captured by a U.S. patrol while attempting to pass as a doctor under a false name. His identity was revealed when his lover called him by name during the transfer. He was immediately placed at the disposal of the International Military Tribunal. In Nuremberg, he was charged with war crimes and crimes against humanity for his role as head of the RSHA, his responsibility in the Holocaust, mass executions, deportations, operation of concentration camps, and Einsatzgruppen activities. During the trial, he denied direct responsibility, claimed he was following orders, and stated he was unaware of the full extent of the crimes. He argued that his name had been used without his consent to sign extermination orders. The prosecution presented documentary and testimonial evidence showing his direct involvement, including photographs taken by the Spanish prisoner Francisco Baur, showing him visiting Mauthausen concentration camp. These images contradicted his claims of ignorance. Ernst Kaltenbrunner was found guilty and sentenced to death. He was executed by hanging in Nuremberg on October 16, 1946. Theo Morell, daily injections to the Führer. Theodor Gilbert Morell was born on July 22, 1886, in Treis, a small German village. He was the second son of a primary school teacher. He trained as a physician in Grenoble and Paris and completed studies in obstetrics and gynecology in Munich in the early 1910s. In 1913, he obtained his doctorate and medical license. Shortly afterward, he worked as an assistant physician in the Navy and Merchant Marine, and during World War I, he served as a medical officer on the front. After the war, he settled in Berlin, where he practiced medicine from 1919. In 1920, he married Johanna Moller, an opera singer and actress from a wealthy background. His medical practice gained attention for unconventional treatments. Thanks to these methods, he was invited to treat the Shah of Persia and the King of Romania. Morell claimed to have studied with Ilya Mechnikov and said he had taught at prestigious universities. He also held shares in several European pharmaceutical companies. In 1933, his professional situation became precarious. Many of his patients were Jewish, and his physical appearance fueled persistent rumors of alleged Jewish ancestry. That same year, he joined the Nazi Party, which allowed him to keep his practice and access more influential circles. He began working as a physician specializing in sexually transmitted diseases among the social and economic elite. In 1936, he successfully treated Heinrich Hoffmann, Hitler's personal photographer, who suffered from gonorrhea. Through Hoffmann and Eva Braun, he was introduced to Adolf Hitler and began frequenting the Berghof. Hitler suffered from intestinal and skin problems when he met Morell at a meeting in Berchtesgaden. Morell claimed he could cure him within a year. He began treatment with commercial preparations, including a combination of vitamins and intestinal bacteria known as Mutaflor. Improvement was rapid, and Hitler appointed him as his personal physician. From that moment, Morell became part of Hitler's inner circle and accompanied him continuously from 1936 to April 1945. His presence immediately generated hostility among other Nazi leaders. Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler distrusted him from the start. Albert Speer recounted that after consulting Morell, he sought a second medical opinion that found no organic pathology. Despite these suspicions, Hitler always supported Morell. Within the power circle, he was nicknamed Needle Chancellor and Minister Injector for his systematic use of injections. Morell had a permanent rivalry with Karl Brandt, another of Hitler's physicians. Disputes were frequent, and Hitler often sided with Morell. Eva Braun ultimately rejected him, calling his practice dirty and refusing to see him again. In March 1939, during negotiations leading to the annexation of Czechoslovakia, President Emil Hácha fainted after confronting Hitler. Morell administered a stimulant he described as vitamins. Shortly after, Hácha accepted the German demands. The exact contents of the injection were never clarified. On July 20, 1944, after the assassination attempt on Hitler, Morell treated him with a topical antibiotic that was not yet regularly available in Germany. In post-war interrogations, he claimed not to know this medication. During the same period, it was revealed that he held shares in pharmaceutical companies promoting products presented as antibiotics. By April 1945, Hitler was taking dozens of pills daily and receiving multiple injections, most administered by Morell. On April 22, 1945, Hitler expelled him from the Berlin bunker, informing him that he was no longer needed. Morell left the capital on one of the last available flights. He was captured shortly afterward by US troops. He was detained and interrogated due to his proximity to Hitler, but was not charged with any crime. He was held in a prisoner camp at the former Buchenwald concentration camp site. During his detention, he was obese, had speech difficulties, and his health was deteriorated. Morell kept detailed records of the substances he administered to Hitler. These included commercial preparations and his own formulas containing vitamins, intestinal bacteria, hormones, stimulants, barbiturates, animal derivatives, and substances commonly used in medicine at the time. Some were taken orally, others by injection. In interrogations, he stated that he did not inform Hitler of the exact contents of the preparations and presented them as vitamin treatments. After his release, his health continued to decline. He died on May 26, 1948 in Tegernsee at the age of 61 due to a stroke. Hans Baur, the pilot of the Inner Circle. Hans Baur was born on June 19, 1897 in Ampfing, within the Kingdom of Bavaria. He grew up in a rural area and from a young age was fascinated by the airplanes crossing the skies of the region, an obsession that ultimately shaped his path before adulthood. In 1915, he was enlisted in the Bavarian army and began training in field artillery. Soon after, he was transferred to the air forces of the German Empire, where he began flying as an artillery observer. By 1918, Hans Baur was assigned to Unit FA-295 and flew as a non-commissioned pilot in Hanover CL, 3 attack planes used for low-altitude missions. He shared the cockpit with observer Georg Ritter von Hengel and participated in direct combat against French aircraft. From July 17th of that year, he was credited with 6 confirmed aerial victories and 3 others that were not officially validated. In one action, he attacked a formation of 7 enemy aircraft and managed to shoot down 2 Spad fighters, earning him the Iron Cross First Class and the Bavarian Silver Medal for valor. His last recorded victory was on October 29, 1918. After the war, he joined a Freikorps under Franz von Epp and later became an airmail pilot in Bavaria. From 1922, he worked in civil aviation, first with Bayerische Luftleute, then with Junkers, and finally, in 1926, he joined Deutsche Lufthansa as a pilot. That same year, he joined the National Socialist Party. On April 1, 1931, he conducted the inaugural flight of the Berlin to Munich to Rome route, known as the Alpine Flight, carrying figures such as Eugenio Pacelli, Arturo Toscanini, and Tsar Boris III of Bulgaria. In 1932, Hans Baur was assigned as a pilot during the German election campaign. Adolf Hitler decided to use the airplane as the primary means to travel across the country, and Baur began handling those trips. After Hitler became Chancellor in 1933, a Junkers Ju-52 was added as the official aircraft for his travels, named Immelmann II. Hitler personally chose Baur as his official pilot, which meant Baur immediately left the civil airline Lufthansa. He then took charge of organizing and directing the government's air squadron, initially based in Oberwiesenfeld, Munich. To give him authority within the system, Heinrich Himmler granted him an SS rank in October 1933. From then on, Baur expanded and organized the air group operating directly for the Reich leadership. In 1934, he was promoted and began incorporating pilots with civil aviation experience, including Georg Betz, who became his regular co-pilot. By 1937, Hitler had 3 Ju-52s available, and that year a Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor was added, named Immelmann III, with greater range and speed. In 1942, an improved version of the Condor entered service, which Baur continued to pilot for Hitler's travels. By late 1944, the squadron, renamed Fliegerstaffel des Führers, received a Ju-290 assigned to the Pocking base in Bavaria. Baur tested the aircraft after modifications were completed in February 1945, although Hitler never flew on it. At the end of the war, Baur commanded around 40 aircraft of various models, including Ju-52s, Condors, Ju-290s, and the Fiesler F1-156 Storch. During those years, he maintained a close relationship with Hitler. He participated in private meetings and received personal gifts, including a Mercedes-Benz car. On March 10, 1943, he accompanied Hitler on a flight to the headquarters of the Army Group South in Zaporizhzhia, Ukraine. In January 1944, he was promoted to SS Brigade Führer and Major General of Police, and on February 24, 1945, he reached the rank of SS Gruppenführer and Lieutenant General of Police. In the final days of the war, he remained with Hitler in the Führer bunker in Berlin. He prepared a plan for aerial evacuation using a Fiesler F1-156 Storch from an improvised runway in the Tiergarten near the Brandenburg Gate, but Hitler chose to stay in the city. On April 26, 1945, Hanna Reitsch used that runway to bring Robert Ritter von Greim, newly appointed head of the Luftwaffe, and both took off from the same location. On April 29th, the Red Army launched the final attack on central Berlin. That night, Hitler said goodbye to his personal pilots, Hans Baur and Georg Betz. Baur insisted on an aerial evacuation and offered to take him on a Ju-390, but the offer was rejected. As a final gesture, Hitler gave him a portrait of Frederick the Great. Baur remained in the complex until April 30th, when Hitler died in the bunker. After that, the runway became unusable, and the area was occupied by the Soviet Third Shock Army. A ground escape toward the west, or to German positions in the north, was organized. Wilhelm Mohnke divided the personnel into 10 groups. Baur left with one group alongside Betz and Martin Bormann, but separated during the advance and joined another group trying to reach Lehrte station. On this route, he was shot in both legs. His injuries led to the amputation of his right leg on June 10, 1945, in Poznan, while under Soviet custody. He was transferred to the Soviet Union and subjected to prolonged interrogations and constant pressure. His captors suspected he had taken Hitler out of Berlin and accused him of flying him to Spain. Baur denied this and stated there was no operational long-range aircraft in Berlin at the time. He was also interrogated about possible links to the looting of artworks, including the Amber Room in Leningrad. He stated he never saw Hitler's body and learned the details later from other detainees. During captivity, he asked Heinz Linger and Otto Günscher to keep silent about the events in the bunker's final days. After 10 years in prison, he was released on October 10, 1955, and returned to West Germany. In 1957, he published his memoirs titled Ich flog die Mächtigen der Erde, later expanded as Mit Mächtigen zwischen Himmel und Erde, known in English as I Was Hitler's Pilot. The book contains first-hand accounts of his daily life with Hitler from 1933 to 1945, including events like Ernst Röhm's arrest in Bad Wiessee and his personal tensions with Hermann Göring. Hans Baur died on February 17, 1993, in Herrsching, Bavaria, at the age of 95. He is buried in Munich's Westfriedhof Cemetery. Rochus Misch, the last man in the bunker. Rochus Misch was born on July 29, 1917, in Alt-Schalkowitz in the region of Upper Silesia, then part of the German Empire. His surname was of Hungarian origin, and he grew up during a period marked by political and territorial changes in interwar Germany. In 1937, he joined the SS Verfügungstruppe, a unit later integrated into the Waffen-SS combat structure. In 1939, he participated in the German invasion of Poland as a member of the Leibstandarte SS Adolf Hitler, where he was seriously wounded in combat. Following this, his company commander recommended him in 1940 to join Adolf Hitler's personal guard, known as the Begleitkommando SS des Führers. This detachment consisted of only 20 carefully selected men for permanent direct service to Hitler. Misch remained assigned to this unit from 1940 until the end of the war. Within the Begleitkommando, he performed various duties. He acted as a messenger, liaison, and bodyguard, although his main role was radio operator and telephone operator. From the early 1940s, he was stationed in Berlin's underground complexes, including bunkers under the Reichstag and later the Führer bunker. From this post, he had daily contact with Hitler's closest circle and became familiar with his routine, personal interactions, and the internal workings of leadership. During the war's final months, he stayed in the Führer bunker with the remaining assigned personnel. In this context, he came to know firsthand the figures comprising the regime's final core. His observations on Hitler's character and behavior aligned in many ways with those recorded by his secretary, Traudl Junge, particularly regarding daily life within the underground shelter. In April 1945, at only 27, Misch was still on duty in the bunker. He was the last person to speak with the Reich Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, minutes before he died alongside Magda Goebbels in the regime's final hours. He also saw the bodies of Hitler and Eva Braun in the room where they died. When the destruction of the remains was ordered, he refused to participate. On May 2, 1945, when the Red Army captured Berlin, Rochus Misch was the last member of Hitler's staff to leave the bunker. Soon after, he was captured by Soviet forces. In 1949, he was sentenced to death for his connection to the Nazi regime, although the sentence was commuted to 25 years of forced labor. Later, the sentence was reduced to 10 years, of which he served 9 in captivity. Between 1945 and 1954, he was detained in Soviet prisons in Kazakhstan and Siberia. During this period, he claimed that, although he transmitted messages between different branches of the regime, he never knew what was happening to the Jewish population in the occupied territories or within Germany. According to his statements, it was only during captivity that he learned the full scale of the crimes committed in the Holocaust. In 1955, he returned to Berlin with his family. There, he founded a painting company and remained out of public life for decades. In his later years, he began sharing his personal experience through books and lectures. In 2006, he published Ich war Hitlers Leibwächter, recounting his service with Hitler, and in 2008, Der letzte Zeuge, focusing on his experiences inside the bunker during the final days of the war. After the deaths of Bernd Freytag von Loringhoven in February 2007, Armin Lehmann in October 2008, and Siegfried Knapper in December 2008, Rochus Misch became the last survivor of the Führer bunker and the last person with direct personal contact with Hitler. Rochus Misch died in Berlin on September 5, 2013, at the age of 96. His life spanned all of Germany's transformations in the 20th century, from the empire to the reunified country. Artur Axmann, from youth leader to witness of the end. Artur Axmann was born on February 18, 1913, in Hagen, in the region of Westphalia. He was the youngest of 5 siblings in a middle-class family. In 1916, he moved with his family to Berlin, where his father worked for an insurance company. 2 years later, in 1918, his father died, leaving his mother to care for the family alone. Axmann began his schooling in 1919 and quickly stood out for his academic performance. In 1922, he received a scholarship to continue his secondary education. In 1928, he attended a speech by Joseph Goebbels. Shortly after, at only 15 years old, he applied to join a student organization linked to the Hitler Youth, where he remained active until completing high school in 1931. Between 1929 and 1930, he began holding positions within that youth structure tied to the party. After finishing high school, he enrolled at the University of Berlin in both law and economics. A year later, the loss of his mother's and elder brother's jobs forced him to abandon his studies to support his family. After finding work, he formally resumed his connection with the National Socialist Party. Thanks to his experience in youth leadership, he was incorporated into the central leadership of the Hitler Youth, taking on administrative and organizational tasks. In 1932, he was appointed regional leader and placed in charge of the social assistance sector of the national youth leadership. His performance was highly regarded, and in 1933 he was tasked with leading the Hitler Youth in Berlin. At that time, the only figure standing between him and full control of the organization was Baldur von Schirach, whom he assisted closely in matters the latter could not directly attend. With the outbreak of World War II, Axmann volunteered for military service in the Wehrmacht. He was soon withdrawn from the front. In 1940, he was called to replace Baldur von Schirach and took full control of the Hitler Youth. One of his first actions was to reorganize the structure with a fully militarized approach. He ordered that older members be transferred to the Wehrmacht and the most outstanding ones to the Waffen-SS. During the campaign on the Eastern Front, he participated in operations against Soviet forces. He was severely wounded in combat and, as a direct result, lost his right arm entirely. From that moment, Adolf Hitler prohibited Axmann from returning to any frontline activity. He then devoted himself exclusively to leading the Hitler Youth. In the war's final months, Axmann was in Berlin. He was present in the Führer bunker during the last days of the regime. During this period, it was publicly announced that he had been awarded the German Order, the highest distinction granted by the Nazi Party. Only he and Konstantin Hehl survived the war among the recipients of this honor. On April 30, 1945, a few hours before Hitler's death, an order was signed authorizing escape attempts. According to later statements from Hitler's personal escort chief, Axmann took the Walter PP pistol that had been removed from the private room and said he would hide it for the future. The next day, May 1st, he left the bunker as part of a breakout group that included Martin Bormann, Werner Naumann, and the physician Ludwig Stumpfegger. The group crossed the Spree River via the Weidendammer Bridge. Later, Axmann separated from the others. Bormann and Stumpfegger continued towards Stettiner station following the railway tracks, while Axmann headed in the opposite direction. Upon encountering a Soviet patrol, he retreated and saw 2 bodies lying near the Invalidenstrasse Bridge, illuminated by moonlight. He identified them as Bormann and Stumpfegger, though he could not determine the exact causes of death. His statements were initially disregarded. Years later, Axmann recounted that both had been fatally wounded after the armored vehicle they were traveling in was hit during the escape. A version confirmed in 1972 when the remains of both were discovered at that same location during urban maintenance work. After the Reich collapsed, Axmann evaded capture using the false identity of Erich Seward and hid in Mecklenburg, Western Pomerania. He was officially declared dead. Months later, he re-established contact with former youth leaders, monitored by the Allies, and was located. Following intense interrogations, he was released in 1946, though he was arrested again in 1947. In 1949, he was tried and sentenced to 3 years and 3 months of civilian labor, which he served in full. In the following years, he tried to rebuild his life through various business ventures. In 1958, he faced another trial and received a fine of 35,000 marks. His own business closed in 1960 due to lack of orders. Between 1971 and 1976, he worked on a tourist development project in Gran Canaria. He later returned to Berlin, retired in 1985, and began recording his memoirs, first in audio form and later as a book. Artur Axmann died in Berlin on October 24, 1996. Julius Streicher, the public face of Nazi hatred. Julius Streicher was born on February 12, 1885, in Fleinhausen, in the then Kingdom of Bavaria. He was one of 9 children of teacher Friedrich Streicher and his wife Anna. He grew up in a family connected to education and followed the same professional path. During his youth, he worked as a primary school teacher, a position he held for several years before fully entering politics. In 1909, he began his political activity by joining the German Democratic Party. During that period, according to his later statements, he had his first encounters with Jewish citizens, experiences that shaped the development of his anti-Semitic ideas. In 1913, he married Kunigunde Roth in Nuremberg. The couple had 2 children, Lothar, born in 1915, and Elmar, born in 1918. With the outbreak of World War I in 1914, he joined the German army. During the conflict, he attained the rank of lieutenant and received the Iron Cross. After the war ended with the 1918 armistice, he returned to civilian life and resumed political activity within radical nationalist organizations. In 1919, he became an active member of the Deutsch-Völkischer Schutz- und Trutzbund, one of the main Völkisch groups of the time. That same year, he participated in founding the German Socialist Party, ultranationalist and openly anti-Semitic. Internal disputes led him in 1921 to join the Deutsche Werkgemeinschaft, an attempt to unify various movements within the same ideological spectrum. In 1922, he brought his followers into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, NSDAP, an early endorsement that strengthened his connection with Adolf Hitler. In 1923, he founded the weekly newspaper Der Stürmer and assumed editorial control. From this platform, he disseminated anti-Semitic propaganda consistently. By 1937, circulation reached nearly 500,000 copies, distributed across Germany through street display cases. His publishing house also produced material for children, including the book Der Giftpilz in 1938. That same year, he actively participated in the failed Munich beer hall putsch. On November 8th to 9th, he coordinated party militants from Marienplatz to Odeonplatz, facing the police in the confrontation at the Feldherrnhalle, which left 14 Nazis dead. From then on, he led the escort of the Blutfahne, the party's blood flag, at every anniversary of the putsch. After the failed uprising, he consolidated himself as one of Hitler's closest collaborators. After the Nazi Party's reorganization in 1925, he was tasked with establishing party structures in northern Bavaria. In 1929, he was appointed Gauleiter of Middle Franconia. From 1933 to 1940, he exercised near-total control over Nuremberg and its surroundings, earning the nickname King of Nuremberg. In 1935, he participated in drafting the Nuremberg Laws, the legal foundation of the regime's racial policy. On August 15, 1935, he led a mass event at Berlin's Sportpalast. Thousands of attendees filled the venue and surrounding areas with loudspeakers broadcasting his speech. Anti-Semitic banners covered the balconies. While his speech offered no new ideas, it drew crowds eager to see him in person, as he rarely visited the capital. In 1940, he was removed from all party positions following a scandal linked to the management of confiscated Jewish properties after Kristallnacht and the spreading of rumors against Hermann Göring. After his fall from grace, he retired to a rural estate near Kadolsburg, west of Nuremberg, and disappeared from public life. In April 1945, he went into hiding. On May 22nd, he was captured by US troops after the Third Reich's collapse. He was placed at the disposal of the International Military Tribunal and transferred to Nuremberg for trial alongside other senior Nazi leaders. Although he did not directly participate in deportations or military operations, the indictment focused on his systematic role in instigating extermination through Der Stürmer propaganda. On October 1, 1946, he was found guilty of crimes against humanity. The sentence concluded that his propagandistic activity directly contributed to the persecution and extermination of the Jewish population. He was executed on October 16, 1946, in Nuremberg. When it was all over, the world did not enter peace. It entered another stage of ruins. Tens of millions had died. Entire continents were devastated, and millions were trapped between new powers, camps, trials, and imposed borders. The Third Reich disappeared, but the violence did not immediately cease. It changed form and geography. The men who surrounded Hitler navigated this new world through very different destinies. Several died in the regime's final days. Others were tried and executed. Some spent years in prison. A few survived long enough to see history fix them forever to a name and a regime that brought destruction on an unprecedented scale. After 1945, there was no collective redemption or clean slate. There was memory, punishment, silence, and in many cases, impunity. That was the true end of the war. Not only the fall of a regime, but proof of how far power can go unchecked and how long the world takes to pay the price.